guys, a big game this weekend. Amorim will not be there. Ruud van Nistelrooy will be. Dan, Chelsea come to Old Trafford. How are you feeling about this game? Manager bounce, 5 goals scored last night. Talk to us, mate. Talk to us.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, mate. Man United couldn't wait one more week, could they, just to give us a chance? But look, we ain't won at Old Trafford in a long time, and the fact that you've now just scored 5 goals against Leicester just doesn't fill me with any confidence, because that's a team that's got habits of our coach. You know, that they spoke literally last week, Harry Winks, on at the weekend about how they use things that they learnt last season under Maresca, this season to sort of change up their fortunes. So, look, I'm not comparing Chelsea to Leicester in any means in terms of the quality of playing squad, but I'm concerned about that new manager bounce and where Chelsea are at, because I don't think we were unbelievable against Newcastle. I think there are defensive issues, and any team capable of scoring that many goals will pose threats against some of our defenders and current liabilities at the moment. But going forward, I believe on our day we can hurt any team in the league.
How much blame do you put on Maresca for last night? Because I think you made one sub until what, the 87th minute, 85th minute?
Yeah, a little bit, Henry. But at the end of the day, Maresca can't really control if the players turn up or not. You know, if players are shit on the pitch, there's nothing you can do as a manager apart from drag them. And I think that's probably where it sort of comes into it, that they probably needed to be removed, to be honest, at a certain point. And I think there's slight issues that probably could be addressed on the training field. But I think we've got to remember that every time Maresca's made these 11 changes, whether or not that's the right thing to do, these players...
11 changes?
Yeah, but Henry, these players... Hang on, wait, yeah, but Henry, okay, maybe Maresca should be aware of that, but he doesn't have any evidence to suggest these players aren't good enough, because every time he's brought them in, they've scored 4 goals and found it easy. Okay, they've played... Yeah, okay, it's relevant who they've played, but for Maresca, they've earned his trust, right? So he's going to back playing those guys. He probably learned a few things last night that actually these players probably aren't at the standard he might have believed them to be at. But if they're scoring 4 goals in every game they play, it would suggest they're at a level above the opposition they've been playing, so they could compete at a higher level. I think he probably feels that he was let down last night by a few players and sort of thought, well, do you know what? They're not going to play at the weekend. And maybe he didn't care about the Carabao Cup enough to risk injuries.
Well, on that, does Enzo Fernandez, who has been called out by Maresca today, talking about the team played well, we lost the game in 10 minutes, but we lost control. His job is literally to be a controlling midfield player. Will Enzo Fernandez start at Old Trafford? And secondary question to that, is it the beginning of the end for him now as a Chelsea player?
The beginning of the end is a difficult one. I genuinely don't think his performances have been good enough, especially for the price tag that's paid. But because of the price tag that's been paid, I don't see Chelsea's exit plan with him, to be honest with you. I don't see a team that are going to cough up the money to potentially pay that contract out. It's a 8-year contract. We're talking about ridiculous money here for a player that probably doesn't look much better than James Ward-Prowse on a good day. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's actually drastically bad. I think CB put out a list of 50 players that are better than Enzo Fernandez, and I didn't disagree with one.
I didn't think it was wrong.
I probably could have added 20. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous how bad this signing has been for Chelsea. But I think we also have to be careful, because today, obviously, he's announced that he's going for a breakup, and I don't know how that's affecting him. But obviously,
do you think that's just perfect timing?
Yeah, I think it's perfect timing, to be honest with you. I think I'm not
You
sure.
announce those things months after they happen. Let's be honest now.
I don't know. It's currently
God.
right now, and I don't know how much of an effect it's having on him. And I think we have to remember this is a 23-year-old kid, and I don't know how many people been for a breakup at 23, but it's probably one of his first ones. He's got 2 kids with the person. It's probably a difficult time for him personally, and he probably is as frustrated as anyone that he isn't performing well on the pitch. But ultimately, to be a top professional, you've got to put that aside.
I do get that, but he's been flopping since before. That's what I would say. And maybe it's right for Chelsea fans to tread a little carefully with him, because he's going through something big in his personal life. But you can still have a professional conversation about him in terms of his professionalism, and just say, you're getting towards 2 years with him at your club. He's the most expensive signing in your history. And I know some, we had Don on the show last night. Big up, Don. Hope you're well, mate. Who basically just said, the first response to the Enzo performance was, why are we only talking about him? We obviously didn't. We spoke about other players that weren't good last night. His second response was, I just think we've got to praise Newcastle. Their midfield was so amazing and it pressed us out the game. And
So
I
you
just
didn't
feel
want to
that-
criticize this.
Well, we have to be
as
careful there
usual, you
because Chelsea's midfield with Lavia and Caicedo were able to bypass that midfield at the weekend. So we have to be careful what we're doing here. And Don is Lavia's biggest fan, and he is well aware that Lavia is probably at a level above Enzo Fernandez when it comes to
Don
being
is,
impressive.
Don is every Chelsea's favourite, biggest fan when it suits him.
Right. So it's difficult for me to see where we go with Enzo. I think last season was incredibly difficult for him because he actually played okay the season before under Graham Potter. Lampard came in. We all know that Lampard's midfield, when it comes to him and his managerial side of things, is atrocious. He played basically a donut, isolated him. It was very, very difficult for any midfielder to have any control of the game under Lampard. Pochettino, when he came in, ultimately misprofiled Enzo Fernandez, played him extremely high up, played him in a position that was sort of as an advanced 10, and I just don't think that works. But the best we've seen of him is when he's played in a 6 role for Argentina. He's won a World Cup in that position. He's obviously got a move playing in that position. I don't think we've seen it enough yet, but you can't deny that yesterday's performance just wasn't good enough, to be honest with you.
You know what, Dan? Yeah. The panel might laugh. People in the chat will cook me. I'm going to go against the grain. I actually rate Enzo Fernandez. However, sometimes you just have to accept he's not catered for this league. And I know you were saying you don't know the exit plan for Chelsea. This is where you're going to have to think of something because, like you said, he's on the death row contract. And the money you brought him in from, it's like a conundrum because I think Poch said as a joke, you know, they say there's with every joke, there's a bit of truth. I think Poch said, well, I can't drop him because upstairs will kill me. I think he was actually being honest because we all know Lavia Caicedo is your best pivot. But I just feel that, look, I think he will cook in a La Liga or a Serie A. But I just think for Chelsea, not even for Chelsea.
You can just see him in a Simeone Atletico Madrid side. Like,
exactly.
Looking unreal, right?
I just think for the Prem.
He's even pulled his socks down like DePaul now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
he's hated for that league. I just think we're football fans. We jump on the player if they've not worked in one particular team. Oh, they're rubbish. You know, I'm going to use Havertz for example. Chelsea fans, he's rubbish. He's gone to Arsenal, look like a different player. Sometimes it might just not be the team's right for you. Sometimes it might be the league. I think he'll go to another league and do well. I don't think there's a bad footballer there. He's just not suited for the Prem.
The thing with Enzo is, for me, is he's been under a few managers now. All these managers have struggled. Not saying that he hasn't had good performances, good players, or any player is going to have good performances across the season. That's a given. But he's not thrived under any manager.
But let's be real, George. Right under Graham Potter,
I know that he hasn't had a lot of time with these managers.
Well, hang on,
even
George,
though he had a long time.
George, you got to be careful with what you're doing here because under Graham Potter, he was good.
Well, you don't even know what I'm doing, though, Dan.
Yeah, I do. You're saying you are suggesting that he hasn't performed to the level, and a number of managers have struggled with him.
That's what I started with. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's all I've heard. So that's what I'm saying is that you've got to be careful with that suggestion because it's not true. He's won a World Cup under the Argentinian manager. He's done well at Benfica. He's done well at River Plate.
No,
but that was all
okay.
prior.
But Henry, then you might actually be onto something with Lo Celso, right? Is that Lo Celso ultimately is just not suited to
He's not
Premier
suited to the
League
Premier League.
like Ron suggested, right? But actually, at Betis and other teams that Lo Celso's been at, he's been very good and highly respected.
Lo Celso one, it's very clear to see that it's fitness issues and stuff because his whole time at Tottenham, he's just had fitness problems. He couldn't keep up with the pace of the Premier League. But my point that I was getting onto was since the move to Chelsea, Enzo has had these problems. There's obviously a lot of factors going into that move that made this a big deal for him, and he's not lived up to it. My point was going to say is there is no exit plan for Chelsea because it's pretty much impossible to get him gone because the wages you've got him on, and like I said, it's an 8 to 9 year deal. Any team that does pick him up has to cover that deal. Otherwise, Chelsea are going to have to agree a compensation fee to then pay out him for the rest of his contract. I don't think any team's going to agree a deal for any contract that long, nor are they going to pay anything near what you want. So what's going to end up happening is Enzo's going to have to stay around for the majority of his contract, and he's going to become a Chelsea player like you guys had under Roman, where you have your loan squads. And I think Chelsea is going back around to that type of team where you have a loan squad again. And people are laughing. I think Chelsea are going to go back.
Well, George, that just unfortunately, George, that just won't be possible because there's regulations in place that don't allow you to have loan squads anymore.
I know, but
that won't happen. What may happen is Chelsea banish players, because we saw it in the summer that players literally got removed from being able to train with the first team, and maybe that's the case. But there'll be an exit strategy for Enzo Fernandez. I'm just not sure what that looks like right now.
There will be. And by the way, I think clubs will buy him. I think there are clubs. Again, you're not going to get 110 million for him. I still think that, and I say this in this way. Yeah, I still think. I'm going to throw a club out here. I think a Juve and AC Milan, as an example, I reckon they'd part with £50 million for him. He's not on massive wages, and I think that for me is, look. There's always time to banter a club, but I don't believe.
Yeah, what is his wages?
I'm
just having a look at it now.
About 150 grand,
max 150, probably about 120.
That's what I think.
I've just searched
he's on 180k.
Again, that's a lot of money to all of us sitting here and everyone in the chat, right? That's that mid-range for a player at a club the size of Chelsea still. It's not. I still think he might have to swallow a bit of money, and he may do that. I think if an AC Milan comes in and says there's 50 million pound this coming summer, they offer him, 150 grand a week, he should jump. I think the pace of Serie A suit him down to a ground. And that's what Chelsea have got to do when they're selling him is, okay, he hasn't worked out here, but for your league, for what you want, he still works. And you could probably get a bit for him. Listen, if I was Chelsea, I would use Scott McTominay as a different type of player, but say, look how much better he looked in your league to our league. I actually think Man United got robbed now. I think we only got 30, 40 million. We should have got about 70 million how good he looks right now.
I don't think he's value.
Look at Granit Xhaka. I know he had a good last season at Arsenal. Look at the difference at him in Germany compared to what he was doing in he just looks a level up. So I don't think it's impossible to sell Enzo. Go on, Roms. Go on.
You know what then happened though? Because I was saying when you went away, I feel that there's a player there, but he will be suited to the Liga Serie A. Literally what you just said. But what will then happen is rivals will be like, oh no, some Chelsea fans will be like, see, he was good. The ones that believe in Enzo, he was good, didn't it? It's like, no, just for this league. Sometimes players aren't just bad just because they're bad for one particular club. We've seen it in the history of the game. Sometimes you just need a different country, different environment, and you'll flourish. And I think Enzo will flourish elsewhere, but Chelsea need to sit down quickly because I don't think it's going to get any better.
He's not the first Argentinian midfielder to not be at the speed of
Enzo Fernandez is not a pillar of a team. He's a piece to a puzzle. He's not a pillar of a team. And they bought him as a pillar of a team, spent a ridiculous amount of money on him. And with the money spent and the amount of investment that Chelsea put in on him, he had to perform at a high level or else he was always going to get this criticism. Now it's at a state where if he cannot even get back into the team, he could be considered one of the worst flops in Premier League history, let alone Chelsea.
He's top three already. He's top three.
The only thing is surely to consider, unfortunately, the amount of money that we pay for him is outrageous, but to consider someone a flop, do they not have already had to have been at a level like e.g. Fernando Torres, right, where they were at a level and they were able to flop because no one knew.
No, but there is pound for pound.
I'm going to buy into that because then I can say Anthony weren't a flop. Woo woo!
Yeah, no, one second.
He was good at Ajax.
It's just in there.
It's just an anti-climax, isn't
it?
So we all expected a little bit more, and we didn't get it.
120 million or whatever it was,
110,
record Premier League signing, bro. For him to perform worse than almost every single £100 million signing, he's performed worse than I think the likes of Pogba, Harry Maguire. You could name Pepe.
Pogba was good. Don't put Pogba in that category.
You could name Darwin Núñez.
How many? Listen, my guy. Pogba won a European trophy. Take my midfielder's name out your mouth.
Terry,
take it out your mouth.
Understand the context. I'm talking about big money signings.
Gagging on Pogba. Stop it. Get him out your mouth now.
Okay, then Agal, all we're doing here is discussing terminology. Actually, I think we can all agree that Enzo Fernandez's performances haven't been good enough. We're just discussing the definition of a flop. That's all we're doing.
Compared to his peers that have gone for big money, he's probably had one of the.
He's a big money flop. I would agree to that. Back to the.